Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So, today we're going to go ahead and continue with the Virgie podcast. I want to just get into it after a couple little announcements. Just so you guys know, I am doing daily January videos. So, I've posted the rest of January, so check those out if you've missed them. And I think my brat era is kind of done because I'm not feeling very bratty anymore. I'm feeling like responsible, maybe even a bit overworked and boring. So I'm going to have to fluff up my personality in some way, probably throughout this winter. But as I'm going into my mid era, which all I have to say, because for the record, I have been on point with deficit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have never worked this hard to be mediocre in my life. I never have. And that's the feeling I have this January. So I'm going to embrace being mid in 2025. But anyways, let's do this. Let's go. Let's go, Virge. Let's go.
So what are you looking forward to in the next year or so? What sets your soul on fire? Like, what are you super excited about?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I just think like to go back to something that I interrupted you, but like we had talked about the trips. Like I
Yeah,
just got back from Italy and like had taken a group of plus size people to Italy and I don't know, it was just like so affirming and so exciting and my mantra as we're like, and Italy is such a historic gorgeous place. I just
absolutely.
kept thinking big bodies in beautiful places, big bodies in beautiful places, kind of like we deserve that.
Yes.
Like I remember we were
Oh my goodness, she's so obsessed. I don't know. I mean, do you ever reach a point where you just don't even think about it that much? You know, like I have fat friends and whatever. I'm fat and my family's, fat and whatever. If we were in Italy, I wouldn't be like, big bodies in beautiful places, big body, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'd just be thinking about the person, you know? It's like, I think you just like be a human being, you know? Like, it's one thing to sit there and have a conversation about obesity, health risks involved with obesity, all these different things in an intellectual sense. But I always, especially as I'm losing weight, I cannot even pretend to try to police what other people are doing. I have to focus on myself. And I very much have that mindset of like, I can't judge unless if I'm like on it, and to me it's like I'm really mid, like I said, or I'm becoming mid. I'm still technically fat, but I'm like we're getting towards I'm in the mid-sized pipeline, and I'm going to just say mid cuz I'm obsessed with that word. Gen Z has tainted my mind with the word mid. Um I'm obsessed. I am. And I'm trying to gear up for my mid era. But that's what I'm saying. What am I going to say to people? Like, gosh, you really should be as mediocre as me. I'm not going to say that. That's kind of like, you know? But if we're having like an intellectual discussion about obesity, or like somebody's asking me something, or if they're complaining about it, then I may say something. But it's up to the person to do something about it. Like I said, the only person that I could see myself trying to police would probably be my mother. And that's a full-time job. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, but not. Like, that would be hard enough. And that's about it. And then obviously, if and when I have kids, I would be policing my children, you know. But that's about it. That's about all the policing I have in me. Um, and honestly, with my mom, it's just kind of like as you get older as your parents get older, you kind of take care of them. You know, you kind of like switch, like roles start to switch over time, that kind of thing. But I want my mom to be as healthy as she can and live as long as she can. So it's like, you know, there's more of a stake there. But like a friend or whatever, like obviously I'm super supportive if somebody wants to lose weight, but I don't look at a friend and think like, oh my gosh, you have to lose weight immediately. Like I don't think of people that way. I just don't. It's like you're figuring it out or you're not. If you have a question, I can answer it to the best of my ability. And that's about it. And yeah, but my friends are not, any friends of mine, they're not like weird about weight loss or whatever. Like I used to have some of those shadowy competitive type of friends and those types of dynamics in my life, but that all died a long time ago. I would say just from being a massive bitch, I scared them all off. So I don't have to deal with those people anymore. So, I mean, look, there can be good and bad in that. I don't have to do it anymore. So, I guess it is like I don't have to be a huge bitch anymore because I don't have those kind of like toxic dynamics. But I honestly, when I think about some past friends, I sometimes wonder like how it would go now, you know? Because I'm not the person that I used to be. Like I used to try to be nice. I will say though, almost every time in my life I've tried to be nice, it's always been horrible and it's never worked out well. So, I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's a question I've had a lot in my life. But I try not to be cruel. But I would just say like I think it's kind of cruel to view somebody just as their fatness, the way Virgie is describing. A fat person is a human being. Like, stop doing that. It's just ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Like, live your life. Like, oh gosh, please don't be like Virgie. That's all. All that to say, please don't be like Virgie. Please don't. Okay?
Coming out of the Sistine Chapel, there's like St. Peters Basilica, which is just an absolutely gorgeous cathedral where there's just, gold everywhere, marble. I mean, it's one of the most ornate structures ever. And so, and we're all just kind of there, and I'm like sort of walking behind the group, and I can just, the light is shining in through these like incredible cathedral windows, and it's just reflecting on their skin and the outlines of their bodies, and it was just so gorgeous, and I just that was kind of like this, like, again,
I mean, have you guys ever heard the saying like thou doth protest too much? Like, don't you think this is a little thick? Like, she's laying this on really thick. Like, I'm willing to bet that her first thought wasn't actually that it's gorgeous. I think she was thinking something else. Because, like, I'm trying to think of, like, okay, like, my mom and grandma are fat. Like, I'm imagining myself in a cathedral with my mom and grandma, the lights coming in. I honestly would just be thinking about the cathedral, or I'd be thinking about if my mom and grandma were having fun, or I'd be looking at what they're doing because they'd probably be like, kind of messing around because that's how my family is. Or they're kind of like my mom would probably be bugging my grandma, and it's just, I'd be looking at that. I wouldn't be like, look at the light on their fat bodies. Like, I wouldn't be thinking that, it's like, I don't know. It's just crazy to me because it's like, does she have actual friends? Like, I think of my friends that are overweight. If we were on a trip, I'd just be thinking about the trip. I feel like we'd be talking about the cathedral or something. It's like I'd be talking about stuff. And I just can't imagine that being like, I don't know. As much of a horrific past as I have with that toxic ritualistic stuff, I I just can't even. Like, I don't know. Like, I probably haven't externalized it to that extent in a very long time. Like, it probably would have to be, I'm talking like maybe like way back, like early high school for me or something, like 2010 or 9 or something. Maybe then. But I can't imagine being 40 and doing that. I just can't. I can't do that now. I would never do that. I wouldn't have done that in my mid 20s. It's like, I just don't understand that. But again, I'm not so in it. And I think even when I was recovering, she just made me realize, like, when I just kind of accepted where I was for the moment, so to speak, I didn't really feel anything about other people being overweight. I just didn't. So, I don't know. It's an interesting thought. It's like I said, this is so like deep in my brain. I haven't thought that way in so long. Oh gosh. It's just awful.
Here, I deserve to be documented.
Absolutely.
My body is not an outlier in this space, but a completely normal, a complete like extension of the beauty of this place. Yep. And I kind of was holding that intention as we were like traveling to these absolutely gorgeous historic places, understanding like I don't know, like the dimensions of like the Coliseum, for example, is just this incredible, massive structure that has sort of stood the test of time. It's like it's absolutely humbling to be in its sort of like, I don't know, like to be next to it, to gaze up at it or whatever, and kind of thinking about like this largeness as something that is worthy of awe and things like that. So I mean, I think to pivot to the question of like what I'm excited about, there's like there's so many things. Like I'm doing a lot of traveling in the upcoming year. I am it looks like I just did a talk for Georgetown, their like adolescent psychiatry department, and they're called grand rounds. Like when it's like kind of a medical school thing. Like at the end of it, there's like this series of talks, and I did this talk on weight discrimination and basically like how we have to switch the number one question from, but isn't fat being unhealthy, to what is the moral imperative, knowing what we know about what weight stigma does to people.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was just kind of like when we switch the narrative.
Okay, first of all, Virgie, that wasn't even catchy or anything. That wasn't smooth. Just on a pure messaging basis, I'm criticizing you there. Secondly, you have to be like straight up willfully blind to not understand that there are health issues with obesity, especially from huge sizes. You have to be you're kidding yourself. So I don't think that people should change it to the weight stigma thing or whatever. If you want to talk about weight stigma, how you could talk about it is in people that have E followed by the letter D, digging at somebody's body is likely just to activate the behaviors. So that's not exactly the way to go about it. That's a way to talk about it, but you also have to give people something to do to talk about it. Which I would say, like, if you're a professional or a medical professional or whatever, you have to they should at least teach these people or give people some kind of awareness about E followed by the letter D so they can possibly even diagnose or understand or at least refer somebody. I don't know. There needs to be some kind of screening process, something, because if somebody's in that, you could tell them advice and it's not going to go anywhere. And it's so hard to deal with on an institutional level. But I think the first step is staying honest about the risks. I understand. I used to be in the E followed by the letter D. I understand going to the doctor. It didn't really help. But I still think from a general population level, it's important that most people understand the health risks of the disorder. I mean, of the obesity. In terms of the disorder, there has to be some other recourse, because I try to explain it to you guys, but it is like trying to give a cat a bath. When somebody has this problem, they will jump out of the water. Like, they just jump away from it so quickly, so fast. I remember when I was a teenager, I would do I don't want to talk about my weight. I don't want to talk about it. It was just so easy. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's very hard. So it's like, good luck, babe, good luck with that. That's hard to do. But it is a mental illness. So I don't know. It's very misunderstood, and people just don't know, because like, as somebody who's been in it, I could probably totally, like, if I were to talk to Virgie, I could probably totally pick at it, and I could probably get her to flip out. So that would be really interesting. I don't think I would do that necessarily, because it's kind of cruel, like I said, but I don't know. I don't know. I get scared when I talk about it sometimes, because the only thing that stopped me was almost dying. And I know for me it was very severe. I know for other people it's not as bad. So I'm hoping that people can wake up. But seeing Virgie, it's like staring into the abyss for me. It's like, oh my gosh. Because she's so in it. And it's like, I don't really know exactly what to do other than, like, I know how to help somebody that wants to be helped. I don't know how to make somebody aware that they have that problem. That's kind of my disconnect. And it's like, I feel like with Virgie, she would have such an issue with that, where she would just freak out. She's built her whole life around it. I mean, everything. You see how much her brain is constantly thinking about body sizes. And I mean, like, even she's on vacation and she can't take a break from that. Like, she's just walking in a cathedral. She's thinking about this stuff. Like, she's thinking about it in that way. Like, think about how she probably never stops thinking about it. And it's like, oh gosh. And so for her to be like, well, let's talk about what weight discrimination does to people, It's like, Virgie, as somebody who used to be probably close to as severe as you, let me talk to you a little bit one-on-one. Most people, they don't even approach anywhere near the level that you're at. So it doesn't sting people anywhere near as much as it stings you, or it used to sting me. So if you're trying to base a whole, like, policy of a whole company, of the whole world, based on your extreme disorder, that, it's not the majority of people, you guys. It really isn't. When we look at super morbidly obese people, it's a much larger percentage of super morbidly obese people that do have this problem, that do have a disorder. But it takes a lot to get to super morbid obesity and to sustain it. It takes a lot. When we're looking at people who are just obese, I have one of you comment a lot. And you said, like, somebody who's just obese, they can kind of just, in America, you can kind of just easily become obese on autopilot just by being kind of lazy or eating out a lot, or, that kind of stuff. They kind of just happen. And that's a different category of person. But those of us that are super morbidly obese or have been super morbidly obese, like myself, we have to understand most people never get to be that size. So you can't base entire policies or all of society based around people with extreme pathology. That doesn't mean that people with extreme pathology should be forgotten or abandoned. And I would never ever say that. But when we're coming at it from this level of like a policy of a hospital or whatever, I think you have to be able to stratify it in a clinical setting. I think if somebody's super morbidly obese, you should at least think it's 50-50. They have some kind of an E followed by the letter D, maybe even higher, maybe 75% chance. If they don't, they probably have a severe hormonal issue, because people don't just get to be almost 400 pounds and stay there. It's very hard to sustain. And I will say it as an ex E followed by the letter D person, I can admit how much it takes. It takes a lot of food to maintain that. It's a lot. You know, I'm talking about being like 400 pounds. It's a lot of food. It's a lot. So if somebody is saying they don't eat, they're lying. If somebody's saying they're hungry, they're probably not lying. So that's a different thing. So I do think a lot of very fat people, they think, well, I'm only eating until I'm full, so this is just how I'm supposed to be. That's a totally different conversation. But what I have an issue with is when super fat, you know, super morbidly obese people on TikTok act as if they're eating 1,800 calories a day. That's E followed by the letter D behavior, in my opinion. You're lying about how much you're eating. So it's tricky. It's such a tricky thing. I don't know what to do other than like having an awareness of it. I think I do want to make a video of like, how do you know you don't? Because I don't like talking about this sometimes, because I don't want people to feel like they do, because you probably don't. You probably don't. Unless if you're like always thinking about it. Like, I guess I can say a bit now, like the best way to tell is like what happens if, let's say, you are driving to work and you're running late. What do you think about? You know? It's that kind of thing. That's like a short, very small thing. But if it's a big thing, like think to past traumatic experiences in your life or past really hard things that have happened. Has that ever changed your eating behavior in a way that's anything more than physical? So anything more than like a reduced appetite or an increased appetite. That's something. The other thing I would say is like, how much do you think about it? How many hours a day are you thinking about your body? That's a good question to ask. Because if it's a lot, then I would be concerned that you're using it as a home, like it's a grounding mechanism for anxiety. So it's like, I'm stressed about this at work, I'm going to think about my body. That's how it works. So most people don't have that. Most people hear what I'm saying and they're like, that's really alien, or like, I don't get it, or like, yeah, like I've eaten sometimes when I'm stressed, but I was hungrier or I needed energy. That's different. That's not what I'm talking about. It has to be like, you know, something emotional happened or something anxiety inducing happened. Like, oh gosh, like I don't know if I can afford to pay my rent this month. I want to order something. You see how it isn't logical? I don't have enough money for this, but I need to still do it. That's a tell. So it depends. You have to reach a certain criteria but it's like, how often are you doing it? And if you're having like full on spells, how often are you having those spells? And by that, I mean like, you know, you're having a huge amount of food. How often are you doing that? And that would have to meet a diagnostic criteria. But as people have said in my comments, there is such a thing as disordered eating, which is different from having an E followed by the letter D. That's engaging in behaviors without the mental side, where there's just, you know, it's not something that you've lost touch with reality over. So you can have different shades of it, and you can also not have enough. You cannot be at a point where you would reach a diagnostic criteria, because it has to reach a certain criteria to actually be a thing. So I don't want people to think that everybody has it. I don't think they do. However, if you're super morbidly obese, I think you should consider if you have it, because it's just so severe. And I think the medical industry should test for it if somebody's really big like that, because it's more likely than not, I would say, honestly. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to break it down a bit. It's hard. It's a little touchy, but I think the system does have to change, because the fact that they're platforming somebody who's so clearly, like, to me, it's so clear, which I know you're not supposed to try to diagnose or whatever, but it's kind of like, I can give you evidence, right? Like, she goes to the cathedral. She can only think about fat people, fat bodies when she's at the cathedral. Like, and there's a lot of other stuff that she said throughout this where it kind of betrays it. But you notice she hardly ever talks about how much she eats or anything. That's just like silent from the discussion. That's not an accident. It's pretty dark. So I'm just going to, I have like it's like a nervous smile on my face, because it's hard. Some of this stuff, it's like, I wouldn't say it's triggering to me, but it's just dark. It's kind of like, ooh, yeah, ooh. But for me, it's kind of it reminds me of how far I've come. I don't know how else to explain it. So it's not necessarily bad for me, but yeah, this is intense, you know. It's an intense topic.
Of health to human rights.
Oh, so good.
What happens?
Yeah.
Like what? And again, it's like, if medicine isn't about human rights and improving human life, then why does it exist?
Yeah.
Is it like, does it exist to improve turtles' lives? Like,
right.
whose lives are you improving if you're not doing that? And so I think it's like really having this like very non-judgmental, very loving conversation with people, medical professionals who are open to having this conversation. Yeah. And it was really, it just was enthralling to get back like feedback from one of the faculty members.
I'm horrified as a fat person and as somebody who's been fat a lot of years, although I have to still wear that label till I can't anymore, because I'm on my way to being mid. I'm horrified that she's advocating for fat people. I think she's probably giving absolutely trash advice. You know, the medical system already doesn't know what to do with this. So you're going to send her in there when she's, you know, I don't want to be super nasty. I'm just going to say she is not in recovery. And she's going in there. And that's the issue with this, is people that have these problems, they're so obsessed, and a part of it is externalizing it. And so it's like, it's just horrible. I'm never going to say that she can give somebody one, because that's not true. You have to remember, it's trauma. It's a trauma response. And typically in childhood, not always in childhood, but typically in childhood, it is a trauma response, which is where it comes from. But when it's like she hasn't healed from whatever the heck it was that happened to her, she's still acting out this coping mechanism. And now she's so obsessed that she's going into the medical industry, and they're listening to somebody who is not well. And it's like, I hate to say it because it's brutal, but how do you know I'm recovered versus Virgie? I'm sustainably losing the weight. That's how you can tell. I kept the weight off. I started losing in 2022. It's now 2025, right? So there's no like crazy fluctuations. I do describe the fluctuation in the winter with my hypothyroidism, but it's very predictable. I could tell you all year. It's coming off now, right? After the winter solstice, right? It's totally coming off, just as I said. So that's very predictable, and that's happened year over year. That's how you can tell somebody's recovered, is if they're losing the weight sustainably. And by that, I mean there's no crazy losing gain. None of that. And if it's just like, I'm not super morbidly obese anymore. A year ago, I was. I'm not even close. I'm continuing to go down. Like, I'm still not to my low of November, but I'm coming down from my swelling. So it's like, I'm going to keep going, and you'll see in the new year. But that's kind of how you can tell if somebody's recovered from, B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D, is that, your weight starts to normalize. But it can get messy because, as we've talked about, you can kind of shift things. But the biggest thing is that obviously there isn't that behavior anymore. There hasn't been for years. I haven't done it since 2020. So, no. I had a couple of times last year, I will be honest. I had a time in April of last year where I was very tempted. And it had been a long time since I had done it, but I was so stressed, financially, work-wise, like all of it. I was so incredibly stressed at the time. And just really, honestly, everything was kind of hitting me in April of last year. And I was so incredibly stressed. I will never forget it. I was at the grocery store. I picked up a bag of jelly beans because it was Easter. And I had counted my calories for the day. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't tired, right? It wasn't a holiday. There's no physical reason. There's no non-anxiety reason why I was picking it up. But I picked it up, and I was watching an Amberlynn Reid reaction video. And hearing her story, I think I was watching Shaped by the Algorithm. Hearing her story, it reminded me of my past. And I was like, no, we're never doing that again. So I put it down. So that was the closest I got. But I didn't. So, just saying. I really think, don't ever eat because of anxiety. That's my best advice. Don't ever eat because of anxiety. Don't ever not eat because of anxiety. That's my best advice. If that's something you struggle with very often, then you may have a problem. Because that's actually what the problem is. And obviously we know about BUL. We don't need to get into that, but that's more obvious. So, anyways, let's continue.
For saying that, it was like, that was the best grand rounds we'd ever had.
Wow.
Like, that was the best grand round speaker we'd ever had. And it just to be like, wow, right? Like, I'm like, I'm not even a medical doctor. Like, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a practitioner of any kind in that way. And so it just felt really good. And I'm like, they've all that to say, they've invited me to kind of come in and participate in more of these conversations with medical professionals. So I'm like,
horrifying.
Really excited.
Horrifying.
About that.
So horrible. That is scary. Like, this is actually frightening because she's just going to make it even worse. And I think that we've already had an issue. There are certain, no shade on anybody, but I think there are a lot of people that are on the restrictive side of things as well that go into like dietitians, you know, like not always obviously, but I see them on TikTok, people who have struggled with that side. And I do believe it's a spectrum. I've had some of you guys talk about it as a spectrum, and I think it is. I agree. Because I think the baseline behaviors of it, or the logic behind it, is very similar. It's just where you're kind of ending up along that spectrum, and people slide along it. And I wasn't aware of that until you guys told me. So I'm really happy you guys told me that, because I didn't know. Because for me, like, I was just so on that side of the spectrum. I could never even imagine. But then even thinking about like my own mother, she had shifted within her E followed by the letter D. She went from, gosh, we're really getting deep on this. She went from BUL to B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D. So she shifted to that. And she still struggles with it, although hers is not anywhere near as severe as mine was. Obviously, that's why she's still living. Honestly, I hate to say it that way, but it's like we already have an issue of people with these problems going into these fields. And I think that that is part of the kind of craziness that goes behind this stuff. So for her to be like so obviously like really severe, like, because you have to remember, it's not always severe. Sometimes it's like more mild, but it could still be that criteria, you know. But just look up the diagnostic criteria. But it's like, it can still be mild. And somebody goes into that and they maybe have like a twisted view of things. And I know one of my friends, where she has PCOS and hypothyroidism, she struggled with people with these issues externalizing it onto her a lot, and she doesn't. I think she doesn't because she's just a very, very logical person, extremely logical, and you can't really have this, no shade on any of us that have had it, but you can't really have it if you're like extremely logical. So yeah, but because it's not logical, it just isn't. You know, we have to be real about that. It isn't a logical thing. But I think when we talk about like bias training or stuff like that, like you have to like, I think that medical professionals need to be aware if they have these issues, and they need to not externalize it. And a lot of times, like, if you have the more restrictive side, you'll listen to someone like Virgie and you'll believe her because the same logic is there. So it's tricky. It's such a tricky thing. It's so messed up. But just be collectively horrified with me that Virgie is talking to doctors and she's giving them horrible advice. So if you don't have these issues, please go advocate or something. You know, like, we have to undo what she's doing. This is horrible. So, gosh, I'm kind of like at a loss for words. I know like when I'm in the deficit and stuff, I can see things a bit more negatively, but I'm kind of shocked by this. I don't know if it's just hitting me because I'm seeing things in a more negative lens, but it's just like, oh my gosh, this has to stop. Like, these things have to stop. So I know I'm just thinking about a lot of stuff, and I'm sorry if it's coming out jumbled, but it's just upsetting to me. This is kind of upsetting.
That's lovely.
I'm
I love that.
this year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've already like, I've got my it's my birthday. I'm a Taurus. I'm a May birthday person, and I'm already like preparing all my little things.
Yes.
Like, you know, it's like mid-April, so I'm like, I'm gonna get my birthday napkins for my whole birthday month. This huge stack of napkins. I just bought them, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get my birthday napkins so I can remember every day as I'm like using a napkin that it's my special month. And I'm like, I think
Oh,
I'm going to. I was just shopping for like flowers. I'm like, I think I'm gonna just do the 200 roses this year
oh, I
because
love
Yes.
why
it.
not? Like,
Why
actually,
not?
there's this company that
Yeah.
I just bought flowers for a friend who had like a really big, powerful, a couple of powerful professional things happen. And I was like,
Yeah.
let me send her some flowers. I was looking on the website and I was like, wow, they'll deliver 200 roses.
I love. Well, tell you what, if you want to do a boudoir shoot in those 200 roses, I'll fly. I will
Ooh.
fly to you, and I will do that as your birthday gift. I dead ass. I will catch a plane, and we can
Wow.
do a huge, full blown.
I just
You
got
can get
chills.
naked in your birthday suit in front of your 200 roses. Bet. I'm serious. I'm so serious about that. I'm so serious. That would be so
Holy
much fun.
monikers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be dope?
That would be amazing.
That would be so dope. You can come as my assistant.
Oh,
We'll fly there.
Virgie.
I'm glad it got
I'm so
boring.
I'm so serious
Happy
too.
birthday, honey.
Because now I'm calmer
Done.
again.
I'm
Because it's
taking
boring.
it. I'm
Yay.
taking it.
Done.
Wow.
Done.
Oh
We
my
are doing
God,
it.
that's
I'm so
amazing.
excited. I love when people have a concept like that. They're like, I want to go big because I deserve it, and I'm there. Well, I don't know what's beeping. Oh, it was our GoPro. But I love when people do that, and they're like, I'm just gonna celebrate me. And the documentation of that, I think, is the most important thing, because it's one thing to gift it to yourself. It's another to like memorialize it and make it
Yes.
a deal. Like this is part of my narrative. This is the story I leave behind, because we don't take photos on this earth for us. It's the
No.
story we leave behind. That's a big part of your story, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Done.
That's incredible. That's amazing. I love this.
Done.
Thank you.
Of course.
You get the
It's my
roses.
absolute honor.
You
Like
get the roses. We'll get the flights.
we'll get the flights. Done.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely done.
the thing that kills me about it too is there are certain people within fat acceptance that I feel like they are like, I don't know. We'll just say, I know it's trendy and kind of cringe and awful to do this, but there are some within fat acceptance leadership, I will say, that I feel have some dark triad energy, some vibes, okay? Aubrey's an example. You know, I think she's, you know, there's something going on. Just some of the stuff where I've heard how she interacts with her friends and stuff, she's extremely controlling. Like, it's just very bizarre. I could not even imagine being her friend. But in terms of like Virgie, to me, Virgie is just like, she's somebody just so deeply in it. And I think she does think she's doing good. And it's just like, oh, it's very tragic in a way. Like, I know that she probably has like a fierce competitive edge to her. Like most of these fat activists do. But I still think that she probably believes she's actually doing good. That's the vibe that I get. You know, I don't think she's nicey nice to everybody. I feel like this is just my intuition. This is just speculation. Okay, we're speculating here. I feel like she is the type where she probably would talk shit about people behind their back. But I think in general, she probably is actually trying to help, or she's really thinking that everybody feels the same way that she does about this, which isn't true. I think she's just so deeply ingrained in the mindset and in all of it that she can't even, like I said, how would you get somebody like that out of it? I don't know. The only thing I could see that could maybe stop her is just hitting that huge health wall. You know, and I get it because I was stubborn too. She may be a Taurus, but I'm a Leo. Leos are probably the second most stubborn, you know, of all of them. So Taurus is the number one. So it's like, I don't know. I do not know what you would do. Like, let me know your guys' takes on that. Like, I'm interested in your thoughts. Like, obviously, we're just kind of speaking here. Most of us are not professionals or anything, but I just like to hear your guys' opinions on these things, because how can you help somebody in that? I'm not sure. Because my answer is kind of dark. Like, I don't like to be the one on here who's like, yeah, I only stopped because I almost died. But it's like, that's the truth. I don't know, you guys. I had to. I had to stop. But I don't know. I feel like, I think after watching this one, I actually understand Virgie a little bit more, and I can see that she really is, she's like a true believer to the core. And like I said, I don't get the same feeling about Aubrey. I think Aubrey is different, put to you that way. I don't know what is going on with Aubrey. But Aubrey does have more charisma than Virgie. Virgie is kind of cringe, but I don't know, you guys. I'm just thinking out loud here. I just don't know. I don't know. It's sad. It's sad, but regardless of if her intentions are super cruel or not, which maybe I'm not reading Virgie correctly, I don't know, but all I can say is we have to stop it. This has to stop. You know, it's no shade on Virgie as a person, but she cannot be advising medical professionals on how to deal with fat people. That is horrifying. Truly. I mean, I can't think of a worst case scenario. I think we're going to go ahead and we're just going to finish this today because we're really close. So I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so, I mean, I guess I'm excited about this. I'm added I'm excited about my food.
Love it.
Yes.
I love it so much. Yes, everybody
That's
deserves
exciting.
They might be
that.
wrapping
Oh,
up
that
anyways.
makes my heart so happy. It's an honor, first and foremost. But I just think that's such a pinnacle thing. I love that. That makes me feel really good.
Makes me happy too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Aw.
yeah, I mean,
Joy.
yeah. So those are just some of the things. I mean, it's like I feel this like this. I do. I mean, I've noticed, like you mentioned, that the news cycle has definitely turned against Plus. Which I mean, literally, I've been watching the genealogy of this with like Old Navy
Yeah.
reneging on their body quality campaign. It all started with that.
It did. It really
And
did.
it just really kind of shows where it's like, hello, like I was like, you cannot be irresponsible and over promising when you don't
Right.
actually have the intention of doing any
Absolutely.
follow through.
Yep.
This is not a trend.
Right.
And so
It's going to be a trend in one way or another because it's not sustainable. So I hope, for all of our sakes, I hope it's just a trend. Because if it isn't, then the only thing that's going to come is early graves for a lot of people. And then it will still end up being a trend. I know that's, gosh, I'm just really in a dark mood today. I'm sorry. I'm feeling the heavy Capricorn season this year. I'm really feeling it this year. Let's be very bluntly realistic. It's going to be a trend one way or the other. We want it to be a trend because people get over it, not because they pass away. Okay? That's what we're trying to accomplish. Okay? Sometimes it's good to be pessimistic because you can kind of shift things in a way before it gets worse. So, yeah, I am not... Like, in seeing that she was hired by the city, like, you know, by the city of San Francisco a year later, you know, a year and a half later, this is from May of 2023. It's horrifying. Truly, like, this has to stop. It just has to stop. You know, it does.
anyway, I remain eternally optimistic because I'm just like, this is a human rights matter. This is not a matter of like what the news cycle says
Absolutely.
or whatever. Like, it's great when the news cycle's on our side, but it's not always going to be, and we have to keep doing this because it's worth doing.
Yeah.
So I remain optimistic because I do see people, including Hickey, taking a stand, just saying like, I'm gonna fight for this.
Yes.
And it's so inspiring when it's one thing when you're like, oh, it's trending, we want to get some coverage.
No, that's a good point.
That is a good point.
It's one thing to do that, and it's another thing to say, I'm gonna fight for this even when it's not trendy,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
I agree with her there. I think it's important for those of us that are not for fat acceptance. Remember, it is going down online, but I've heard some of you guys have been DMing me about things. It's alive and well in real life. So I think it's important to understand, like, there has to be, we may have to start pushing back in general. Like, if I'm hearing that she's advocating to the medical industry in telling them BS, somebody has to be there to undo what she's doing. Because we're going to have to start probably talking about it in real life more. Which that is horrifying to me as an introvert. But I see her doing this, and it's like, well, somebody has to do the opposite of what she's doing. Like, we can't. People have to advocate against what she's saying. Otherwise, it's just going to take over. Basically, it will still take over everything. So, obviously, doing it online is good, but I don't know. She's making me think about stuff. Gosh, Lord only knows where the adventure of my life is going to go, but wherever it is, it's starting here. And, oh my gosh, this is just horrifying. Sorry, I'm like really, but some of the stuff I'm covering this month, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. But I think we just need to see where we're at, you know? We just got to see where we're at and just take the information, move forward. That's all.
And that's what matters. And I see those people doing that day in and day out, no matter what. And that really lights me up too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's actually a really good point.
It is an excellent point.
I don't think I ever really thought of it like that.
Well, yeah. I
mean,
there's just brands that I've seen that claim to,
be size inclusive, and they just made their XL
and there's not a
3X,
single
and there's not a
well,
single
not
thing.
even clothing.
It's like,
but like even stuff to put on your body, and there's not even anyone's size 10, 12 in their photos.
Oh, that's a big thing.
Right? And I'm like, how is that inclusive?
Representation matters. Don't just say it, be about it.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I also see that in the boudoir world, though, too. People say they're size and gender inclusive, but their pages are all cis-het white women that are tiny, perky boobs, flat bellies. Like, you can say one thing and also show it, like it's okay to have both, to be inclusive and show it, you know? Yeah.
Virgie, I know we're a little bit over time. Are you okay?
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good? Okay.
Awesome.
We could just talk to you forever.
I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We know your time is important. Was there anything else that we wanted to touch on? I can't remember.
Nope, we did it all.
I think we did it all. So we want people to follow you. Tell us all the ways that they can find you.
I think we're all set. So I'm going to go ahead and call it there. But thank you guys for watching. Sorry if this is a bit dooming. But yeah. What's going on this channel is in its infancy, okay? So I'm seeing like there's probably a lot more work to do. And that is horrifying to me. But it's better to just know and move forward. So, yeah, I really appreciate you guys. You guys have been so supportive this month with my daily uploads. I really appreciate it. I'm doing a lot of, I'm using this time to really research and see where things are headed for the rest of the year before I kind of launch the next chapter, so to speak, probably towards March. So I really appreciate you guys being here for this time. I think this time is important. And again, I'm going down the mid pipeline. So I am getting ready to be a mid mediocre queen soon. The bloat is steadily coming off, which is good. So I'm excited. I'm so excited for that. Even if my brat is over, it was fun while it lasted. But I do feel more focused as well. So, yeah. Let's do this. Let's do all of it. But, yeah, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc. See you soon. Bye.